My in-laws sided with a monster. Over my wife, now they want back in our lives. My wife forgave them, but I never will. 36M. Married to my wife, 34F. We have a 3-year-old son, and my wife is 6 months pregnant with a girl. I love my wife, and she's way stronger than I am because she's dealt with more in her life than I could ever imagine. My wife was repeatedly sexually abused as a little girl by her paternal grandfather. She told me about this back in college, but hadn't told anyone else about it at that point. Shortly before we got married, she was 27 at the time, she decided she needed to tell her parents what happened, and also file a police report because she was terrified it might happen to another child. He was very old at that point, but my wife filed, just in case. Long story short, her parents and entire extended family accused her of lying for attention. This devastated my wife, who was close to both of her parents, but especially her father. Things got really tense between my wife and her parents, and they didn't speak for years. They didn't go to our wedding, and they hadn't even met our son until a few days ago. I personally saw how painful it was for my wife, who felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love and protect her the most. What her grandfather did was obviously disgusting and terrible, but I honestly think she was even more traumatized and heartbroken over her parents' reaction to the abuse. Let's just say there were lots of tear-filled nights, especially around holidays, birthdays, and other big life events. A few days ago, my mill reached out to my wife out of the blue. According to my wife, my mill was in tears, and her 2 of her cousins, their sisters, told their parents they were sexually abused by the grandfather. I guess her parents now believe her because they don't think all 3 of them would lie about this. My MIL and FIL then got on a plane, they're about an hour flight from us, because they wanted to apologize to my wife in person. They came to our house, met our son for the first time, and had a long talk with my wife saying how sorry they were. The 3 of them were in tears, and I have to admit that the remorse on my in-laws' part seemed genuine. They at least seemed to realize how badly they fucked up, and I think they'll probably be sorry about it for the rest of their lives. After lots of apologizes, my wife told my in-laws she loves them and forgives them and wants them to be part of our lives. To be honest, I want nothing to do with these people. As a father, I don't understand how you could do that to your own child. I will let my wife have whatever relationship she wants with them, but I don't ever see myself liking or trusting them. I couldn't sit there anymore, so I got up to leave. My wife asked where I was going, and I said I was tired. It was like 6 o'clock. My wife told me to stay and that she forgives her parents, and I quipped back that I don't and never would. I told my in-laws that they broke my wife's heart and that I can't imagine siding with a child molester over my own child. I also added that my wife is the most caring and trustworthy person I'd ever met, and she'd done nothing to warrant that treatment from her family. My ML started crying even harder, and my FIL repeated his same apologies about how sorry he was. I removed myself and went to bed. When my wife finally came upstairs, she wasn't happy with me. She said her parents are sorry and wants our kids to have their grandparents in their lives. I said it was her decision, but I'm not going to pretend to like them after how badly they hurt her. My wife asked me to imagine how I would feel if I learned that my father hurt one of our kids. I said I'd be shocked and confused, but my first duty is to her and our children, and so I'd always chose the 3 of them. My wife kept reiterating that it was a difficult situation and asked if I could at least try to see their perspective. I told her I'd try for her sake, but again, I don't think I'll ever forgive them. The in-laws have left, luckily, but I can tell my wife is still a bit upset with me. Ida for what I said and how I acted? Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Thanks to everyone who commented and shared their perspectives. I've read through a lot of the comments, and it's given me a lot to think about. I wanted to give a quick update because a few things have happened since I posted. First off, my wife and I had a long, deep conversation after I made the original post. I could tell she was still upset, and honestly, I was too. I didn't want this to turn into a situation where there's a wedge between us, especially with her being pregnant and dealing with so much already. So, we sat down and really talked things through. I wanted her to understand where I was coming from, but I also wanted to hear her out fully. My wife admitted that she's still struggling with her parents' betrayal, but she also explained that their apology, as late as it was, meant the world to her. She said it's like a weight she's been carrying for years has finally been lifted, and she's just desperate for some sense of normalcy. I get that, I really do. She's been through so much, and if reconnecting with her parents brings her some peace, I don't want to be the one to take that away from her. That said, I told her that while I respect her decision to forgive them and allow them back into her life, I need time. I can't just flip a switch and pretend everything is okay. I've seen her at her lowest points because of what her parents did, and that's not something I can just forget. She understood where I was coming from and said she doesn't expect me to forgive them overnight, but she asked me to try and not let my anger affect our family dynamic. We also talked about the future and what a relationship with her parents might look like moving forward. My wife wants our kids to have a relationship with their grandparents, and while that's still a tough pill for me to swallow, I agreed to try and keep an open mind. We both agreed that the kids' safety and well-being are the top priority, and we're on the same page about that. One thing we're planning to do is couples counseling. We've never done it before, but I think it could help us navigate this situation and make sure we're both heard and understood. I want to make sure we're on solid ground, especially with a new baby on the way. As for her parents, they've been reaching out more, texts, calls, even sending a gift for our son. My wife has been engaging with them, but I'm keeping my distance for now. I need time to process everything and figure out how I want to approach this moving forward. It's hard to see them in any light other than the people who abandoned my wife when she needed them most. But I'm trying for her sake. I'm still conflicted, and I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my in-laws. But I'm committed to making sure my marriage is strong and that my wife feels supported. It's going to be a process, and I'm not sure where it'll lead, but I'm taking it one step at a time. I'll update again if there's anything significant to share. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It's been really helpful during a tough time. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and things have been complicated. After some of the initial shock and emotions settled, I tried to take a step back and look at everything more objectively. The counseling sessions have started, and while they've been really helpful for my wife and me, they've also brought up a lot of intense emotions. During one session, the therapist asked us to list out what we each needed to feel secure and supported moving forward. My wife's list was about rebuilding her relationship with her parents, feeling understood by me, and creating a stable environment for our kids. My list was more focused on setting boundaries with her parents and making sure my wife knows I'll always have her back, even when it's hard. Our therapist pointed out that we're both coming from places of love and protection, but our approaches are different. My wife is looking for healing and reconnection, while I'm more in the protective, defensive mode. She said it's natural given our roles in the relationship and what we've both experienced, but it's important to find a middle ground where neither of us feels like we're sacrificing too much. One of the tougher moments came when my wife asked if I could try to have a civil conversation with her parents, just to start mending things. She doesn't want to push me, but she also doesn't want to feel like she's stuck between her husband and her parents. I agreed to give it a shot, but I'll admit I was dreading it. I feel like I'm being asked to put on a mask and pretend everything is okay when it's not. So, we arranged a video call. I thought it'd be easier than having them in our house again, but it was still pretty rough. They apologized again, and I did my best to stay calm and civil, but I couldn't hold back completely. I told them that while I appreciate their apologies, it's going to take time, if ever, for me to fully forgive them. I made it clear that their actions had a massive impact on my wife's life, and by extension, mine, and our kids' lives too. They said they understood and would do whatever it takes to earn back my trust, but honestly, I'm not sure if that's possible. After the call, my wife was quiet. I could tell she was disappointed, but she didn't say much. I think she's starting to realize that while she's ready to move forward, I'm still very much stuck in the past. It's not that I don't want to support her, it's just that I can't seem to let go of the anger and resentment I feel toward her parents. The counseling has helped us communicate better, but it's also made it clear that this is going to be a long road. My wife is hoping for a happy ending, where we all get along and her parents are part of our lives again, but I'm still struggling to see that as a reality. We've decided to take things slow. My wife is going to continue rebuilding her relationship with her parents, and I'm going to take a step back from that process. I'll support her from a distance, but I'm not ready to dive into this new family dynamic. I'm trying to be there for her emotionally, but it's hard when I feel like I'm constantly on edge about the whole situation. In terms of our marriage, we're still strong, but I can feel the strain. My wife is doing her best to keep things normal, especially for our son and the baby on the way, but I know she's stressed. I am too. We're both trying to navigate this as best we can, but there's no easy solution. I wish I had a more definitive update, but the truth is, we're still in the thick of it. I'm committed to making this work, but it's not going to be easy. I just hope that in the end, we come out stronger on the other side. I'll update again if there's more to share. Thanks for the continued support. Update 3. I wanted to come back with what will probably be my final update. It's been a few months since everything first went down, and a lot has changed. Some good, some not so good. First, the good news. Our daughter was born a couple of weeks ago. She's healthy, beautiful, and we're all over the moon to have her here. The birth was a little earlier than expected, but everything went smoothly, and my wife is recovering well. Our son is obsessed with his baby sister, which is heartwarming to see. Now, on to the not-so-good news. The situation with my in-laws has continued to be a source of tension. After my last update, we had a couple more counseling sessions, but we hit a bit of a wall. The counselor suggested that I might benefit from some individual therapy to work through my feelings toward my in-laws, and I've been doing that. It's helped me understand where my anger is coming from, but it hasn't made it any easier to accept their presence in our lives. My wife has continued to rebuild her relationship with her parents, and they've been more involved since the baby was born. They visited us in the hospital, at my wife's request, and I did my best to be civil, but it was hard. Seeing them hold our daughter, knowing what they did to my wife, felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't shake the feeling that they don't deserve to be part of these precious moments, even though my wife wants them there. After they left, my wife and I had another heart-to-heart. She admitted that she's noticed how distant I've been lately, especially with her parents being around more. She said she understands why I feel the way I do, but she's worried that if I don't start letting go of some of this anger, it's going to drive a wedge between us. She's right, of course. I've been so focused on protecting her and our family that I didn't realize how much I was letting my resentment consume me. I don't want to lose my marriage over this, but I also don't know how to just let go of everything. We made a decision together. We're going to try a new approach. My wife has agreed to limit her parents' involvement in our lives, at least for now. They won't be coming over as often, and we're going to set some firm boundaries. I'm going to continue with therapy to work on my feelings, and we're going to keep up with the couple's counseling to make sure we're staying connected. It's not a perfect solution, but it's the best we can do right now. My wife knows I'm trying, and I know she's doing her best to balance everything. I'm hopeful that with time, we can find a way to move forward without this hanging over us so heavily. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to a point where I fully forgive my in-laws, but I'm starting to realize that holding on to all this anger isn't helping anyone. My priority is my wife, our kids, and our marriage, and I'm willing to put in the work to make sure that remains strong. So that's where we're at. It's been a rough road, but we're making progress, even if it's slow. I'm grateful for all the advice and support I've gotten here. It's helped more than you know. Thanks again, everyone.